The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Peoria City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. If you would like to address an issue that is on the agenda, or if you would like to speak to the Council regarding a non-agenda item, please complete a speaker request form, which can be found in the front lobby of the Peoria City Council chambers or in the tray to the left of the speaker's podium. Please place the completed speaker request form in the second tray to the left of the speaker's podium labeled Request to Speak. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown clock is easily visible on the left side of the wall behind the City Council dais. Only items listed on the agenda may be addressed by the Council. Since items presented as part of a speaker's request have not been listed on the agenda, and due to the requirements of open meeting laws, the Council will be unable to respond to items presented as part of the speaker's request. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time, in the order that the forms were received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Peoria City Council meeting.
Peoria City Council meeting will now come to order. We are honored to have Boy Scout Troop 686 with us this evening. Please rise for a moment of quiet reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance led by members of Troop 686.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are honored to have you here and appreciate you leading us in the pledge. All right, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Carlett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Finn.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hunt. Here. Councilmember Patena.
Here.
Councilmember Binsbacher.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Leone.
Here.
Council Liaison Acosta.
Here.
And Council Liaison Gaytrist.
Here.
First item on the agenda this evening is the consent agenda, and tonight's consent agenda includes items that require public hearing. If there is any member of the public present who wants to address a public hearing that's on the consent agenda, please complete a speaker request form and place it in the bin next to the speaker's podium. I have received no speaker request forms. Council, are there any items to be removed from consent? Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move we accept. Second.
A motion and a second. Council, please vote. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. We will now move on to new business. Begin with item 15R. This is a public hearing, rezoning, Cowtown, 10402 West Carefree Highway. This is a request to rezone approximately 78 acres of land from special use permit and floodplain to Cowtown planned area development. Mr. Tyne.
Great, thank you. And Chris Hawkes, our Planning and Community Development Director, will provide a presentation on this and the subsequent item now.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Good evening, members of the Mayor and Council. Items 15R and 16R, they pertain to the Cowtown property. 15R is a proposed rezone, and 16R is an MOU or Memorandum of Understanding between the city and the applicant, and it supplements the rezone. So they both work in tandem on this case. The applicant tonight is Westward Ho Adventures, and they are represented by Brian Greathouse from Birch and Cratuolo. Cowtown, if you're not familiar, is located, it's about a property of 78 acres. It's identified on red on the screen. It's located about 2.2 miles west of the intersection of Lake Pleasant Parkway and Old Carefree Highway alignment. So if you think about it, as you're driving out of Lake Pleasant Parkway, when you get to the Wild Horse Restaurant, on the southeast corner, the Turf Soaring School on the northwest corner, if you make the turn there and drive past the Canyon Raceway, you'll eventually get to the Cowtown property. So the Cowtown property is past the Agua Fria River. Once you get to the Cowtown property, and as you can see on the screen, the terrain becomes exceptionally rugged, particularly to the north, west, and south of that property. The ruggedness of the area within and around Cowtown provides topographic separation from Lake Pleasant Heights, the future planned community, which is about 1.2 miles to the west. Cowtown is a long-standing facility dating back to the early 1970s. So in a minute, I'll talk about the history and why we're here this evening. This case is a little unusual in that there's no proposed development associated with this rezone. Rather, this rezone was filed by the applicant at the behest of the city to better identify the permitted land uses on the site, the standards, and the operational criteria. So before I move on, I wanted to just pause and thank the applicant for their continued engagement in this process. We've worked with Rick and Chris Shaw, also with Brian Greathouse. This is a big event to bring this case to you this evening. It's been, we've worked with them over the last year and a half. I also want to thank staff, Lori Deaver, who's in the audience. She worked on the sign code, and then she was also assigned to this project too. So she's become very much involved in all the complexities and details associated with this project. Also want to thank some of the departments we work with, namely the City Attorney's Office, the Development Engineering Department, and the Police Department as well for their consultation as we moved along. Okay, so we have two cases before us tonight. 15R, this is a rezone, and the intended action is to rezone the property from special use and floodplain to planned area development. As you know, planned area development is a customized type of zoning category that we can identify specific standards and criteria that's unique to that development. And 16R, this is a memorandum of understanding between the city and the applicant, and the purpose of this, again, is to work in tandem with the rezone, but to outline commitments and performance measures of the Cowtown facility. In terms of the context, this graphic illustrates land ownership in the area. So if you look at the graphic and identify all the land in blue, that's the land that's owned by the Arizona State Land Department. It surrounds the property for the most part. The private land is the area that's not colored in blue. So if you look to the east, there's a 420-acre private parcel owned by First Trust. Another ownership in the area is the APS substation. I will note that I mentioned Canyon Speedway earlier. That happens to be a lease on state land property. That's the same situation with the Glider School, which is further down near Lake Pleasant Parkway. Those are both lease properties. Okay, the property of Cowtown actually traces its history to 1974 when the property was purchased by Ron Nix. Ron Nix was a Hollywood stuntman and a Western film producer. So at that time, and for several years thereafter, the property was in an area of unincorporated Maricopa County. We didn't annex it until 1994. At that time, it was established as an amusement park through the county. The property was primarily developed for promoting entertainment events of all types, but primarily was centered around Old West activities. Activities that they had at the Cowtown property included Old West entertainment, film productions, stunt school, restaurant, radio competitions, fast draw shooting competitions, live fire shooting gallery, to name a few. And as the applicant indicated, I was surprised, but apparently there were over 200 film productions that were filmed at the property. I had no idea about that, but that's what we learned. The property was later purchased in 1993 by the current ownership, Westward Ho, and they continued the various entertainment and recreational activities that were occurring on site, such as the Western shooting, the sport shooting, and the training-related activities. And they supplemented it with firearm and marksmanship training, primarily geared to military and police agencies. The property was later annexed in 1994 as part of a larger annexation. So if I can direct your attention to the exhibit to the right, that's the city of Peoria outline. If you look at the area in the dark blue, that's the area of the city as it existed in 1990, or about 63 square miles. In the 1990s, there were a series of very large annexations that occurred. We call it the Race to the Lake, but essentially it was a bid to bring in Lake Pleasant as part of the city of Peoria. And effectively in the 1990s, the land area of Peoria doubled in size. The Cowtown property was part of one of those large annexations that occurred in the 1990s. The Cowtown owner at that time agreed to annex into the city with the understanding that the land uses occurring there would be grandfathered in. So prior to annexation in 1994, a letter was generated by the city of Peoria under the signature of the city manager at that time. And so what that letter did is it acknowledged that all existing uses, buildings, structures, and means of servicing the property would be grandfathered upon annexation. So with that, the applicant agreed to annex into the city, and that occurred, as I indicated, in 1994. So despite the good intent of that letter, there was some ambiguity in terms of the uses that were permitted, and that ambiguity has caused some strain over the years between the city and the landowner there. Some examples of that ambiguity, when you look at the letter, some of the land uses that were identified are pretty general. And for example, gatherings. What's a gathering? What constitutes a gathering? It could be, as you can imagine, all types of scenarios for a gathering or a dance. What is a training activity? That's a very ambiguous term there. So the purpose of this PAD was to try to add some certainty to what land uses are allowed there, what are the standards that they're allowed to occur in, and the operational criteria. The graphic on the right identifies the existing zoning in the area. The property, upon its annexation in 1994, was provided with special use and floodplain zoning. So that was the closest associated zoning that we had at the time that lined up with what the county had prior to that. We have since repealed the floodplain zoning from our zoning ordinance. However, the zoning of special use and floodplain remain unchanged to this day on the property. Looking at the screen here, the property to the north, west, and south, I guess it's the yellow, the darker yellow, that's state land that's currently zoned SR 43 Suburban Ranch. And then the properties to the east, the lighter yellow, is zoned agricultural, general agricultural, or AG. The graphic on the right is the site plan associated with Cowtown. I know it might be a little hard to see, but let me try to walk you through it. If you look at the extreme southeast corner of the site, that's where the old Carefree Highway enters the property. So as it enters the property, there is a gatehouse and parking area upon that entry. If you can see the area in the brown, that's what they call the Western Village, and that's where the area that some existing, where the movie sets are and where they filmed some movies in the past. The area in the lighter green, that's where the existing long-range shooting platforms and training areas are located. And the area in the dark green on the right-hand side of the site, that's where they have shooting bays for pistols and guns of that type. As I indicated, Cowtown has been the host of various activities over the years, including entertainment and recreational activities, along with shooting competitions, firearm training classes, and advanced training. So these uses existed in some capacity prior to annexation. So this is a departure from our typical zoning case when we're dealing with development, in that this is a non-traditional type of land use. And in land use cases, we often have to consult with experts to provide us with information about the case. With a outdoor shooting range, you can imagine there are specific land use considerations that we have to consider with the designing, maintaining, and managing this type of facility. As you can imagine, this is outside the staff's normal proficiency, but within Cowtown's expertise. So to that end, the Cowtown group, and as part of this PAD, they retained a qualified expert known as Don Turner from Don Turner Consulting Services. So he has extensive knowledge and expertise in the design and management of outdoor shooting ranges. His resume is attached in your staff report, but essentially among his resume, he's an NRA instructor, he's a range technical team advisor, and he also has experience managing Clark County and the Ben Avery ranges. Mr. Turner reviewed the details of Cowtown's site plan and operational handbook as part of this case. His review did lead to some modifications to the platform areas and the operational practices. Attached as Exhibit B in your staff report is a letter from Don Turner asserting that Cowtown meets criteria for best management practices. So as he indicates in that letter, quote, best management practices ensure that shooting ranges are safe due to a combination of management practices, safety rules, operations, and physical design. In his letter, he goes on to state that Cowtown demonstrates that their operations will meet these criteria and be in compliance with appropriate safety and management concerns. So over time, there may be industry circumstances that warrant modifications to Cowtown to maintain best management practices. Cowtown would be responsible to ensure that those best management practices are maintained as they go along. Okay, so the accompanying PAD and memorandum of understanding, if approved this evening, that will replace the 1994 letter that's produced some strain. This will have more specificity to what land uses are permitted. Some of these land uses will have additional conditions attached to them, or maybe they might require a fire department operational permit. It just depends on the land use. We've also identified a threshold for temporary uses, and when a TUP, which requires city review, it would be required. This has been one source of strain in the past. When events have occurred on the property, again, this has the zoning entitlement or the umbrella of an amusement facility, but some types of facilities, activities when they involve the public at large or might be of a certain size really should require the review and evaluation from the city. So we've identified a threshold in this PAD that determines when a type of activity would require a temporary use permit from the city. And so that a threshold would be based on if generators are used or size of a tent. And so those types of facilities are align up with the size of a facility. So in that case, if a temporary use permit is required, it would come in. We would review everything from to make sure it has adequate parking and access, water facilities, does it have the appropriate public safety and security measures in place. So that would all occur with the temporary use permit for some of those larger activities. What we're not looking to capture within that TUP are some of the smaller activities. They've indicated in the past that they've had things like model shoots. I mean, those aren't the type of things I think we need to review as part of a TUP. So that's the purpose of the threshold. The MOU, that's going to be a companion, and it outlines the commitments and how the range will be operated in the future. In terms of public safety, the PAD will specify that outdoor shooting will only occur within areas designated as shooting and range training on the site plan. Furthermore, all operations and management of the shooting ranges must be in accordance with a protocol that's contained in the operations handbook that was reviewed by Mr. Turner. The use of the facility is going to be limited to shooting clubs, competition events, registered user groups, police military organizations, and private members. Users on site, they will have to be accompanied by a Cowtown Range Safety Officer, RSO, or a designated RSO with approved credentials by Cowtown. Members that use the property also have to be within a range safety course every 6 months to maintain their knowledge of the protocol. Now, in terms of physical access, this has always been something that's been a little concerning in that there isn't any current physical barrier around the property. We certainly don't want people to unwittingly enter the property. So what will occur as part of this PAD, and there are stipulations in the ordinance, is that the property will be required to be fenced within a year, and it'll be fenced in 2 phases. So if you look at the site plan to the right, the area that's identified in red, that's the most accessible area of the property. That's the entry of the property. That will have to be fenced within a 6-month period upon the effective date if the council chooses to adopt the ordinance tonight. Also, along with that, the fencing will be required to have warning signage no less than every 50 feet along the fencing. The second phase, the area in orange, will be required to be fenced within a 12-month period. And the area around the orange is some of the areas on the property that are more rugged or have wildlife corridors that run through it. So in the cases where we have extreme rugged conditions, there will be the ability for posts to be substituted because the fence may not be practical in those cases. However, nonetheless, fencing, or I should say the warning signage, will still be required in all these areas, at least 25 to 50 feet. So the property is going to be, within a year, fully contained, fully enclosed, and fully signed around the property to warn visitors to the area. The city does not presently have water and wastewater infrastructure to serve the site. However, the Cowtown does receive some non-potable water from a well on site. However, water and portable toilets are brought on an as-needed basis today. Any future expansion or enhancement of the Cowtown facility is going to require increased storage capacity as well as fully permanent facilities. As with any rezone case, we also have a public outreach process. Given the size of the property, notification was required to all properties within a quarter-mile radius of it. So we send postcards out when the application comes in and also prior to the notice of hearing. and all registered HOAs within a 1-mile radius. You saw the ownership earlier, didn't touch a lot of property owners, namely the State Land Department and a few private property owners. We did have a neighborhood meeting that was held on November 7th, 2016 at the Wild Horse Restaurant. That meeting was attended by the State Land Commissioner, also staff, and Councilmember Bensbacher. Opposition and support. Today, we don't have any current opposition to the PAD request. We did have an opposition letter that was submitted earlier. I'll talk about that letter and how it was resolved. But today, as we sit, there is no current opposition. The State Land Department withdrew their opposition on February 28th, 2018. So let's talk briefly about that opposition. Prior to November 2nd, we hadn't received any support or opposition to the case. November 2nd happened to be about the time when we were moving this case forward to Planning Commission. So we did receive a letter of opposition at that time from the State Land Department. Some of the concerns that they cited in that letter was they wanted remediation. There were some known contaminants that they had studied near the area, and there were some physical encroachments that they were concerned about. They also wanted safeguards to future encroachments on the state land property from any Cowtown activities. And also, they believe that the range span study and the surface danger diagram, these are technical studies that look at the nature of where guns are fired and how they, where they reach the property. So they wanted it to be in conformance with the Department of Army's Range Safety Manual. So after that letter was received, the case was continued by the commission. Staff and the State Land Department and the applicant got together to talk through these concerns. Cowtown agreed, they worked separately with the State Land Department on a separate agreement, but essentially they agreed to fence the property that will help prevent future encroachments, as I indicated. They've also agreed to remove all the encroachments and restore disturbed areas within a 12-month time frame per that agreement. They've also agreed to remediate any contaminated soil on state land property within a 3-month period. So those terms, although that's part of a separate agreement with State Land and Cowtown, is acknowledged and identified in our MOU. So we acknowledge that those actions will be occurring as well. So, as I indicated, they withdrew their opposition in late February of 2018. The case went to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We held an early study session in January to talk through some of the complexities of the case. We held a public hearing on March 1st, 2018. We didn't have any speakers present from the general public, and at that evening, the commission unanimously recommended approval of the case. So the key finding that we have, again, as I indicated, it's important that we bring this case forward, given some of the past history. We believe the PAD tool is the right tool. It provides an improvement to the existing zoning disposition. It removes some of the ambiguity, clarifies some of the allowed uses, the standards, and the operational criteria. And I think going forward, this is going to put the city and Cowtown in a better position to resolve some of those disputes that we've had in the past. So with that, Mayor and Council, the recommendation twofold is to concur with the Planning Commission and approve the rezone of the 78 acres from special use and floodplain to planned area development, subject to conditions 1 through 17, and 16R to approval to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Westward Ho Adventures. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Well, before I ask for questions, I would just like to thank you for all of your hard work on this. I know it has been going on for years, and I know it was complicated in many different ways at many different times. And so to come to this conclusion, I would just like to thank the owners of the land and the staff who worked on this at the City of Peoria, and all of you for your diligence in finding some way for everyone to win in this. It's really wonderful that everyone did win and it all came out very healthy. So with that, Council, are there any questions? Maybe Bridget wants to go first. Councilmember Bensbacher.
Thank you. I would just echo the mayor's comments. Thank you all. Brian Greathouse, the applicant, the property owners, staff, for all of your work. This was definitely one of the most unique settings for a public meeting, without a doubt. But this is progress. We're moving in the right direction, and I really look forward to see what happens in the future for this, for Cowtown. I think it has tremendous potential. I've always thought that. So congratulations.
Councilmember Hunt.
Well, I too was planning to thank everybody. I can tell this has been years of hard work. And I think, Chris, if I were in your place and your planners, I would think it was unique and interesting, even though a lot of hard work. And Brian, I'm sure this was unique to anything you had represented before. And to the owners, wow, you've really hung in there. And I think you're creating an amazing place out there. I can remember years ago, well before you owned it, where I knew several people that got married out there. And I knew a lot of people that just went out there on a Saturday night for a good time. I'm not sure what they were doing, but they went out there for a good time. I did want to ask the owners, or Brian, do you guys have plans to reopen the brown part there that was the old town, like the rawhide kind of building facades, and have that kind of entertainment?
Would you care to come to the podium?
They're going to let Brian earn his keep.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. For your record, my name is Brian Greathouse, 702 East Osborne Road. Yeah, the Cowtown, the old village up on top of the hill, it's pretty run down. Ultimately, it may be improved, but there's no need to improve it right now because there's no interested users in that. But if there were ever an activity, maybe a movie shoot or something that came up, that would definitely be a cool thing to update that.
And I also wanted to ask, maybe it was there and I missed it, but if you're on Lake Pleasant Parkway and then you go left, how many miles is it actually to that property? It doesn't look very far on the map, but you said it was a long ways, so.
Mayor Pro Tem Hunt, members of the council, it's approximately 2.2 miles from that intersection.
And is the road paved and everything to get there, or is it stagecoach?
The first 1.5 miles are paved, and then beyond that, it's dirt.
Any man for himself, huh? Okay. Well, thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I would like to add that that road has been improved, not too far in the recent, I guess not so recent history, so that it is safe for, public safety vehicles to go back there now. So that's always a good thing.
Mayor, that's correct. A bridge was installed, I think, about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's been a lot of efforts made to make things safe. I do have one question, since you're standing right there, Brian. Didn't sit down fast enough. I know that something has been worked out with State Land Department to remove contaminants from their land surrounding, but what about lead contaminants that are on the actual property there? Is there any possibility of those staying there and filtering down to the water table?
Good question. Rick Shaw just told me that he has had the well tested, so that he knows that there's no higher lead levels in the water table. All development has to be tested to meet certain residential and commercial levels. So depending on what you're developing, we will ultimately have to do that, but it won't need to be done until something is proposed out there other than what is being used today. I don't think there are really any tests that they do on an ongoing basis other than just cleaning up bullets and stuff like that. And there are other measures you can do at shooting facilities that I know they've talked to me about on gathering some of those shells. It automatically gathers them and you can recycle them, but it takes a significant investment, and that's something they'll look into as well.
It seems to me that you might just be able to pick them up.
Could, yeah.
I'd like to suggest that, if I might. All right, any other comments? Motion?
I move to approve 15R and 16R. Can we do them together?
Excuse me, Mayor, this is a public hearing. You need to open the public hearing.
Public hearing. Okay, so wait one moment, please. This is a public hearing, and I declare this public hearing open. Is there any members of the public who would care to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I declare this public hearing closed. Council, any further comments or a motion?
Ready. Motion to approve items 15R and 16R.
Do we have to do them separately?
We do,
Okay, so just
okay.
just 15R.
So I would like to make a motion to approve 15R.
Thank you. Council, please vote on item 15R. And that passes unanimously. 16R is not a public hearing, so I will just entertain other comments or a motion.
So moved.
Second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. And 16R passes unanimously also. Thank you. Congratulations. All right. Next item on the agenda is call to the public for non-agenda items. I have no speaker request forms at this time, so we will move on to reports from City Manager. Mr. Time?
Great, thank you, Mayor. And first off, I wanted to ask our Community Services Department staff to come up. 2018, of course, marked the 25th season for spring training baseball here at the City of Peoria. And with that in mind, we did want to provide you a report on the 2018 spring training season. And so we'll have our Deputy Director of Community Services, Chris Calcaterra, introduce his staff. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Jeff. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much for your commitment over the past 25 years to the teams and the partners and the sports complex as a whole. You're about to hear of a fantastic season, our 25th season, but it's not just the team on the field that we get to see during spring training. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention all the support staff that help out at the spring training. You're going to hear two wonderful professionals talk about the season, but behind the scenes, we've been working with the police department, the fire department, safety, security, and everything with MLB, and they've been just a huge support. Also, Jen Stein, her organization as well. Our beautiful video board is running with replay that has been aided upon by their professional skills. So, and many more others behind the scenes that I could stay in all night or stay all night and express. But I just want to pass that on. That's 25 years of support. With that, though, I'd like to introduce Mike Holland and Blake Engler, who are going to walk you through this season for 2018.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We appreciate the opportunity to present to you some of the highlights from the 2018 spring training season, as Jeff and Chris mentioned, our 25th season. Peoria finished 6th overall in average attendance for the third year in a row and saw a 3% increase in average per game attendance over 2017. We drew over 200,000 fans for the 4th year in a row and for the 14th time in our 25 seasons. Compared to the other two team facilities in the Cactus League, we were 3rd in those rankings. As 2017 was a World Baseball Classic season, the 2018 campaign marked a return back to a typical average 30-game season as we hosted 5 less games than 2017. We also had a record 13 night games that were driven by a Mariners performance study. And under the new MLB player agreement, the start of spring training was earlier than ever before, with our first game on February 23rd, which would be a new challenge for the foreseeable future. The Cactus League reported that the start did affect the rest of the league, with all the other stadiums recording their lowest game prior to March 1st. In 2018, the spring training just missed eclipsing the $8 million mark in gross revenues from game day revenue categories. But although the total revenues are down, impacted by the 5 less games, we did see a positive uptick in all game day revenues categories, with the overall totaling an increase of 6.9% per game in those key categories. Additionally, City of Peoria staff, for the first time, directly operated the catered group sales. Despite having 5 less games, we reached great success, increasing our group sales revenue by nearly 20% over 2017. And I'll pass it over to Blake Engler.
Nice patio
as we
furniture.
mentioned.
I said nice patio furniture.
As we mentioned, this season we celebrated our 25th year of spring training in an unprecedented campaign themed around civic and community engagement and in honor of serving our fans for 25 seasons. We celebrated people in the community that work and serve in capacities that protect and provide for others, such as teachers, nurses, first responders, volunteers, active military, and retired veterans. We also enhanced fundraising opportunities for children's education and animal care, and celebrated with all our fans with special giveaways and experiential opportunities. Along with our goal to work with the Mariners and Padres to offer competitive and affordable ticket prices, the Resident Rewards Program was offered again this season. The second year of this program saw a 72% increase in redemptions over its inaugural season last year. With this offer, Peoria residents could claim up to 25% off each ticket, up to 4 tickets, for as many games as they wish to attend. And when purchasing tickets in advance, we also included a voucher for free parking. As always, the Peoria Diamond Club was an integral part of spring training in Peoria. The Diamond Club started the season with 574 volunteers, 20% of which were new recruits. This effort contributed 20,000 hours of work at Peoria Sports Complex with roles in parking, ticket taking, ushering, and more. At the annual charity game, which took place on February 23rd, the Diamond Club showcased its support of local youth organizations and its mission to raise funds through extensive volunteer efforts. The Diamond Club's spring grant distribution yielded over $21,000 in giving for the period. The Cactus League commissioned an official economic impact survey this season. Arizona State University executed the survey. The previous economic impact study conducted by FMR Associates was released in 2015 and calculated a spring training direct impact of $30 million annually for the city of Peoria. Additionally, ASU will be completing a non-spring training economic impact study. The 2015 study yielded an additional $25 million in non-spring training economic impact throughout the calendar year, as Peoria Sports Complex hosts over 150 events and activities from April through January. With that, on behalf of everyone at the sports complex, we'd like to thank the mayor, the city council, city leadership, and Peoria residents for their continued support.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions or comments? Did you?
I'll make a quick comment. Congratulations on the 25th season and for recognizing all that goes in to putting on a spring training. I think you guys are amazing. It's incredible what you do over there, not just during spring training, but throughout the year. What communications adds to that effort has been tremendous, and it's really showing. But it's tremendous teamwork. You guys are awesome, and you do it with the citizens in mind, the community in mind, the promotions that you're so loyal to, that Peoria is loyal to year after year to take care of the residents, I think is fantastic too. So well done, guys.
Councilmember Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to concur with Bridget. You guys just really knocked it out of the park again this year, but not only congratulations to you, but I want to do a special thanks, shout out to all the red shirts. You know, year after year, it is so neat to see the same returning individuals, men and women, coming out and volunteering their time, and they become part of the Peoria family. They really understand the area. They know the concessions. They know the parking and the restaurants across the street. So they really are an extension of Peoria when it comes to, I watched many times, hey, what's neat to do around here? And they said, well, you know, have you gone across the street to a restaurant, or have you gone up to Lake Pleasant and enjoyed the lake? So they're really an extension of ambassadors to Peoria. So I just want to thank them on our behalf for the job well done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt, did you have something? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much, and congratulations. 25, it's a big one. Silver, isn't it? Or is it diamonds? They're all diamonds, aren't they?
Thank you, Blake, Mike, and Chris. I appreciate that. Last quick item I just wanted to bring out. As you're aware, the city puts considerable effort to maintain the highest standards within all of their major operating departments. We often do that through the form of accreditation. And recently, the police department has gone through its accreditation process. The Commission of Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies was in town with 2 of their national site interviewers undergoing extensive review of our department and our city and our community, met with a number of different stakeholders, including our own mayor, to learn more about all of our operations and practices that we have. While we won't have an official answer until the summer, I can tell you that the CALEA interviewers did mention that we are compliant with all 484 standards that they have in place. So we're very optimistic, to say the least. That is all I have, and thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. And we will move on to reports from City Council, and we'll begin with Youth Council Liaison Acosta.
Thank you, Mayor. So I will begin with talking about Relay for Life. I remember I mentioned this last meeting that happened on, it was a Saturday. Yeah, that's not important. But our high school, Centennial High School, hosted this year's Relay for Life, which is an event with a mission to give hope and comfort to the victims and family members of cancer. There were many clubs and organizations there trying to raise funds, raise funds to research for a cure. The Youth Advisory Board is there raising money as well. The last time I checked, we'd raised $800, but that's not including the $1,000 donation from Councilmember Finn. Thank you for that, and I think that was about the total. I'm not quite sure where we left off, but we did a really good job. And so I also mentioned that I was going to FBLA State, and guess what? I'm also going to Nationals. Yay! In parliamentary procedures. How ironic. But I've been in FBLA since sophomore year, and this is the first year I'm going to Nationals, so I'm super excited. I'm going to set up a GoFundMe page. If you want that information, I will gladly give it to you all. And with that, I also, Peoria Diamond Club, I just wanted to say thank you because I know I applied for a scholarship, and luckily I got it, so I just want to express my gratitude for what you do for our students. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Patena.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So on Saturday, April 7th, Karen Halstead and I attended the Peacock Village HOA meeting. It was in conjunction with their annual meeting. There was probably 30 people in attendance. I gave an update on what's going on in the city of Peoria, what we can expect in the future. Was also attended by Commander Chuck Bazile from the Police Department and City Code Officer Evan Greenwald. It's always nice to have the police and the code come out because there are so many questions that they're asked. And Commander Bazile talked about crime statistics, and they were pretty impressive. So it was a good meeting, and I like attending HOA meetings and telling people about what goes on in our city. And on Monday, April 9th, and Tuesday, April 10th, last week, we held our budget study sessions. And our budget study sessions were actually scheduled for 3 days. We got those taken care of in 2 days. On both of those days, we actually got out early. I saw the budget presentation as being pretty flawless. It was very easy to understand and follow. I know a lot of work, if you ever looked at the budget book, it's 6 inches thick. And I know a lot of work goes into the budget, and I just want to thank Katie Gregory and Barry Haug for an amazing job. It's quite a job you guys do, and I know for one, I appreciate an easy budget process. I'm not that numbers guy. And congratulations to the police accreditation process. I'm sure, Chief, that you will become accredited, and becoming accredited is no easy task. Like Jeff said, you have over 400 standards that you have to meet. That's a lot. So congratulations to you, and I look forward to you becoming accredited. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Binsbacher.
Thank you, Mayor. I would have to concur with Councilmember Patena on the budget process. I just don't know how it could have run any more efficiently, really. thank you to staff for all your work and commitment in making that happen. And you made that process so seamless. And I'm very grateful for that. And we got some great things accomplished. So that's fantastic. I just want to mention that we have the Party for the Planet New River Cleanup on Saturday morning, and that is at 7 a.m. at 99th and Northern. And then later that same afternoon on Saturday at 4 p.m., we have Planet Palooza Earth Day Festival at West Wing Community Park. That starts at 4 p.m. Fantastic event, and I encourage everyone to get out to either of those events that day. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Finn?
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Finn?
I'll take either one. It doesn't really matter to me. I also want to concur about the budgetary process. I'm sure you'll hear that all the way down this line. That was the best budgetary process I've been through, and incredibly thorough, and it never ceases to amaze me how people can just answer questions on the fly. I mean, we threw things out from left field, and you guys are able to answer those questions. So very impressive, very, very, very much appreciated, all the work that went into that. I also wanted to thank my assistant Irene for her help in the Shred-a-thon on Saturday, this past Saturday. Very nice turnout. We actually collected donations for the church as people handed money to give to the church. So it's kind of a nice little side there that we could actually help collect some donations for them. But it was a very, very nice turnout, 130 or some cars. It's always daunting when you pull up and there's a line wrapped out into the street. But also want to thank our youth advisory members that came out and helped us as well. So that was very, very helpful for us. And then finally, I attended a informational meeting on the improvements at Thunderbird and 83rd Avenue that are upcoming. If someone's watching that is interested in that and you just couldn't get to the meeting due to the sheer gridlock of the number of people that attended, there is an absolutely amazing video, and I mean that sincerely, an amazing video. It's about 4 minutes long. I believe we're going to be posting it on the city website that gives you the information on that project, how long it takes, why we're doing it, and the innovative technology that the city has used in their traffic signals there. So I encourage anyone, if you weren't able to make that meeting, to please go on the website when it's up and watch that video, because it really is very, very well done and incredibly informative. So that's all I have.
All right. Councilmember Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess I'll continue with the trend and thank staff for all their hard work on the budget. And I see a few of them down there smiling. Katie, your smile can't get any bigger from here. But you guys did a phenomenal job in getting us all the information that we needed. And like the Vice Mayor said, any questions, you guys were anticipating our questions ahead of time. And so I just really thank you for doing the due diligence and making the process so seamless. I've been here in years way past when that process wasn't as seamless. And so you guys really did a phenomenal job. So Jeff and staff, thank you so much for that. Last week I was honored to attend a ribbon cutting over at Bubba's 33, which is one of the new restaurants over in the P83 district. So if you're in the P83 district next to Harkins, I highly recommend going over. Phenomenal burgers, pizzas, chicken, just a phenomenal array of variety of food. So congratulations and welcome to the P83 area. Last week I also was able to attend the opening of the Peoria Leadership Institute class, and the classes just seem to grow every year. I think it's 24 residents that we have in this year's class. Phenomenal amount of interest in the classes, and they range from public safety to water to budget. Katie, you had them eating out of your hands last week on those budget numbers. It was really neat to watch and listen to the questions they had. And again, you were anticipating and had all of the information readily available. So kudos to you and the staff. And this week I was able to co-host a Shred-a-thon with Walmart over off of Deer Valley and Lake Pleasant Parkway. And we had about 160, 170 cars come through the parking lot. I think I beat you, Mike. But
120 when you told me.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Maybe it was 500, I don't know. But no, but again, I just want to thank everybody that came out, and we'll continue to do that. I think every one of us does one in our own district at some point, but it's just a really good opportunity for you guys, for everybody to get rid of items that no longer needed. And then finally, I want to be able to be one of the first to welcome one of the new police officers to our force. Oliver is our new service dog that was donated by the Foundation for Service Dog Support. And he's a golden retriever with 18 months of experience under his belt. He's gone through 18 months of training, and they had a ceremony and a graduation, and he was sworn in by our police chief on Saturday. And so welcome Oliver to the police force. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Don't forget about his paw print.
And his paw print, yes.
Yes.
I had the
Councilmember
privilege of meeting Oliver today earlier in the parking lot out there, and needless to say, it's love at first sight, and he's actually a comfort dog. He doesn't have to smell out for bombs or anything like that. He just gets loved on all the time, and as a golden retriever, he certainly puts out that love. I want to say, first of all, thank you for you Boy Scouts for coming, and you have been so patient. I've watched you. I was a teacher, so I gravitate to watching kids, and I didn't have an impulse any time to tell anybody to turn around and be quiet. So I know that you really were, I think someone was doing his homework, but that's okay. These meetings can be tedious, I agree, for your age, but I hope you got something out of it tonight, and I hope you also saw that we don't do all really boring things. The shooting range, the Cowtown, that will probably be of interest to you as you turn 18. I think you do have to be 18 in order to go out there and shoot. But that's going to be a real amenity for you guys. And then also the ballpark. Let me just see a hand. Here's my teacher again. How many of you went to a ball game this summer at our sports complex? Mariners, anybody? Did you sit in the grass or did you eat a hot dog? It's really a fun experience, isn't it? And that's just one of many things that you get to do here in the city of Peoria. Anyway, thank you for being our guests here tonight. Okay, first of all, I was... Maylee mentioned the Relay for Life. I was privileged to welcome all of those hundreds of cancer survivors, people with active cancer, relatives of cancer victims to the city of Peoria. And it was at Centennial High School, and they allowed me to come in there even though I'm a Peoria High School person. And it was just really uplifting, and I really enjoyed it. That was the Relay for Life. Also, the Peoria Arts and Culture Festival was held down here a couple Saturdays ago, where the whole place is just student art, and from all of our high school and elementary schools in the Peoria Unified School District, and that's really fun. The plein air, Bridget, you didn't mention the plein air. I was
waiting on results. I will update
results. Okay. Well, there was a wonderful plein air, and if you don't know what that is, it's where artists go out and they paint in the open air, and they get a vision there, and up there where they were, it's just all beautiful scenery, and they paint, and other less proficient artists maybe, or just people that want to learn, sit and learn from them and watch them and paint themselves. It's just an amazing festival. It was the first of many, I'm sure, to come, and that was put on by Wham. And I think last, I want to say just thank you to our police personnel on all levels. We just know how hard you work for our safety and just to make Peoria a really comfortable, wonderful place to live. We do feel safe in our neighborhoods because of our cops on the street. You guys you put your lives on the line every day. You never know when you stop someone for a tail light, how they're going to respond. And I really appreciate that. And all of the backstage people too that make your cops on the street possible, our 911 operators that we celebrated 2 weeks ago here at our council meeting, and they have a really tough job. They're the first ones to hear that cry for help. And just want you to know at all levels, whether you're in an office now, whether you're a detective, whether you're a street cop, whatever your position, you really are appreciated. And the fact that you're going to receive this CALEA accreditation is just really a high tribute to this whole department. So thank you for what you do. And I'm so glad you have Oliver now, because he will take you to a whole new level, I'm sure. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Leone?
Yes, thank you. On Saturday, April 7th, I went to Osuna Park. They had the Peoria Arts Culture Festival. This is a great event, and I don't want to see this fade away or go away someplace else, because the kids that did all the drawing did a great job. They do a lot better than I can do. And the music was great, and the food was great. And there was a lot of people there, and I was really proud to see as many people there as there was. So I just want to make sure that we just keep this festival going, because it's important to the city of Peoria, and it's important to the families. Also, Wednesday started the leadership school. They had about 30 kids there, 30 people there, and it's great. And they're going to have about 8 or 9 weeks, and they're gonna learn a lot from all these instructors. So when you go, if you have any questions, make sure you ask the questions and get the answers. It's important, and these are the people that can give you the answers. On Saturday, April 14th, we had Scotland Yard Park event. It was just great. We had the movie Coco. I don't know if anybody saw it or not, but it was just a great movie. Everything was free. There were a lot of people there. And I just want to say thank you to my assistant, Karen. She did all the work. She put it together and took it apart. And I want to thank her for that. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless America, and God bless all those Boy Scouts.
Thank you. Youth Council Liaison Gatrist.
Thank you, Mayor. So on April 7th in the morning, I attended the Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival. There was amazing artwork that was there. There was even a chalkboard to fill out what art means to you, and there were a lot of different responses, and to me it was really inspirational. Later that day, I attended the Relay for Life event held at Centennial High School. The Youth Advisory Board raised $820.10. That's not including Mr. Michael Finn's donation. And they also led a conga lap, from what I heard. I would also like to say thank you to those who participated, donated, and helped out at this event, because it truly means a lot, because I've had a lot of family who has cancer. So, yeah. On April 14th, I attended a shred-a-thon for Vice Mayor Michael Finn, along with one of my youth advisory peers, Leah Gilbertson. There were lots of cars, it was very successful, and it went by smoothly. Later that day, I went to Councilmember Carlo Leone's event, his Park Fest, and they had a showing movie of Coco, like he said. I've never seen that movie, so that would be my first time seeing that movie, and it was just amazing. By far my favorite Pixar movie. I know it's getting into the summertime, it's getting warm, pool season's here, and so I just encourage you guys, if you haven't yet, take the CPR certification class from the Peoria Fire Med, because I took that class and you get certified then and there, and it was really awesome. I enjoyed it. And also, I also forgot to mention, at the Relay for Life, we had a dunk tank, and we dunked the chief. And I'm pretty sure he had a good time in that dunk tank. So.
He's saying no, he did not.
And I would also like to congratulate the Peoria Police Department for getting their new addition, Oliver, because I like dogs, so. And that's all I have today, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to add one more thing about the budget, if I might, if you haven't heard too much about it already. I know that it seems like we were just so brilliant getting through our budget in 2 days, but we must not forget that throughout the course of the last 6 months, we have been having work-study sessions that led us up to this brilliance on economic development and our enterprise funds and various different kinds of conversations that took a big chunk of our budget. And also our capital improvement program. I would like to congratulate Adina Lund. This was her first time giving the capital improvement program budget presentation. She spoke for an hour and a half on our very largest projects in the city, and she did it without notes. I mean, it was incredible. She knew the answer to every question. She knew every project, and it just speaks volumes for how ready you were for your promotion that you received last year. So thank you for that, and thanks everybody for all of the preparation. How well you prepared us is what was really great. And then we ended up with a perfectly balanced budget with no tax increase, the Peoria way. So thank you all very much, and with that, we are adjourned.